I guess we'll turn it over to Lisa Thompson with EPA OAQPS for an update on the oil and natural gas methane rule.
Thanks for having me today. Unfortunately, I don't have anything prepared like Bob, so I'm just going to read through some talking points, but please jump in if you have any questions, or we can talk at the end. So I'm sure, as folks know, we're working under the
Go get to Arby's and get your flux.
If you're not speaking, be sure to mute yourself.
I'm sorry, I was hearing some feedback and I wasn't sure if that was on my end or not. Sorry about that. So
that's fine. Allison, you got control of that?
Sorry, I'm trying to mute and it's not working. If they don't mute soon, I might just have to kick them, but I'm seeing what I can do.
Okay, thank you.
On the oil and gas side, we're also working under the January executive orders to issue proposed oil and gas regulations by September next month. The executive.
So sorry, misclicked and muted you. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So the executive order protecting public health and the environment and restoring science to tackling the climate crisis directs EPA to consider strengthening current standards for methane emissions from new, reconstructed, and modified sources by September of this year. It also instructs us to propose new standards and guidelines to address emissions from existing sources, something we have not done at the nationwide level before, and something that would involve your states throughout the emission guidelines process under Section 111D of the Clean Air Act. This update today is kind of focused on the small business advocacy review panel that we're conducting. The proposal may affect a number of regulated entities throughout the sector, including oil and natural gas well sites, gathering and boosting stations, natural gas processing plants, and sources in the natural gas transmission and storage segments. We expect this proposal to potentially affect thousands of future oil and natural gas well sites, some of which may be expected to be owned by small businesses, and small entities are most likely to own well sites with low production levels. The Regulatory Flexibility Act requires that EPA convene a small business advocacy review panel for a proposed rule unless the agency can certify that the rule will not have a significant economic impact on a substantial number of small entities. The panel process offers an opportunity for small businesses, small governments, and small non-for-profit organizations to provide advice and recommendations to ensure that we carefully consider small entity concerns regarding the impact of the potential rule on their organizations. The panel itself is comprised of employees from EPA, the Office of Management and Budget, and the Small Business Administration. The small entity representatives that participate provide advice and recommendations to the panel. This panel was officially convened on July 15th. 25 small entities representatives self-nominated, and 19 of those were selected to formally advise the panel on small business concerns. EPA has held 3 outreach meetings with these small entity representatives on June 29th, July 29th, and August 3rd, and has accepted written comments from these small entities until August 12th. The panel is scheduled to conclude in mid-September and will result in a report to the EPA administrator with recommendations for providing regulatory flexibilities for small businesses. Beyond the small business panel, we've been conducting extensive outreach this spring and summer to get input as we develop the proposal, including trainings for tribes, communities, and small businesses, public listening sessions, meetings with NGOs and with industry. We appreciate the input so many of you have provided us. Once we issue the proposal, there will be a new opportunity for public comment, and EPA will hold a public hearing. We'll keep you posted on those dates once the proposal goes out. And we also want to remind you that we're holding a virtual workshop to hear perspectives on innovative technologies that could be used to detect methane emissions from the oil and gas industry. That's next Monday and Tuesday, and you can register to attend by the end of the day tomorrow. And we'll also live stream the workshop on YouTube if you'd like to watch it, and we'll post the YouTube link shortly before the workshop begins. That's all I have today. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So yeah, I joined in on some of those listening sessions, and there's definitely a lot of people making comments. Some of them I think will hopefully show up on the innovative workshop. There's at least a few in there. I know that you asked for specific, like, give us details on this and specific information that we can act on. And yes, I will make sure that I find that link, because I think I remember it may have even posted it to our social media. But yeah, if I can't find it, I'll ask Lisa to send me a link to that workshop. What are the, aside from most of the things in the listening session I found were general, like, yes, we support this, very few were, and usually they're only in the industry, were against that. So what have been the general gist of the comments that have been received?
Do you mean as part of the small business advocacy panel?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so it's just small businesses. So I think in general, they are seeking like across the board exemptions from the proposal, or very relaxed regulations from what we did in 2016. They have a lot of concerns about how we define hydraulic fracturing, and have told us that our definition in the current NSPS can kind of broadly apply to basically every oil and gas well. Their biggest, beyond that, I think they're really interested in an exemption for low production wells, or like stripper wells less than 15 barrels of oil per day.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are the main concerns. They also have some concerns about how we treat storage vessels, and I think, like, in general, we've had a little bit of, we've heard some like interesting feedback that what they've been told from OAQPS or their regional folks is not what the rule writer's intention has been with the rules. So I think we're learning a lot on things we need to clarify that I guess have not been clear over the last couple of years. So it's been really helpful in that sense.
So in the rules, they were talking about specifically for like 15 barrels per day or less. Is there any provisions in the rules for if a well comes in at a higher level and then production drops as, say, initial pressure lowers? Because I've known a few that came in at like 300 barrels per day and then dropped down to like 75, which would still apply, but the majority of wells in Tennessee, for example, are half to a quarter barrel a day.
Yeah, we've been on a journey in Quad OA about how we've treated low production wells over the several iterations since 2015. Right now, folks might be familiar with the Congressional Review Act that President Biden signed last month that rescinded the policy rule that was done last year, but not the technical rule. So there are some discrepancies on the books with Quad OA. So right now, low production wells are exempted for methane for VOC emissions, but are regulated for VOC emissions. And one of the goals of the proposal is to marry all that up and have one set of requirements for both pollutants. But yeah, once also in the rule is a provision that once all equipment is removed from a well and it's just kind of at a steady state wellhead only, then the requirements are just become reporting and record keeping requirements.
Okay. So Rhonda, thank you for putting the link to the workshop in the chat. So if anybody is needing that link, it is in the chat. Any other questions for Lisa? All right, hearing none, certainly appreciate you giving us
Thank
that
you.
update. I know some of us are in larger oil producing states, but others like Tennessee, for example, we have quite a few wells, but most of them are small. So definitely we've been following this as to how it might impact small businesses. So thank you for that. With that,